Hi guys, well today we're going to be checking out the ZOTAC GTX 1070 Ti Amp Extreme. Now this one here should have been done a little bit sooner, but I've been in Australia for the last few weeks, and so apologies for the delay there. Many of you will already be aware of the situation with the 1070 Ti in that all Nvidia partners are locked to stock settings on their cards, and so regardless of which card you go for, out of the box, it's going to offer the same performance as every other brand. However, ZOTAC here does have a sneaky little trick up their sleeve. This Amp Extreme has been given the usual triple fan treatment courtesy of what ZOTAC term Ice Storm. And so while this card is colossal in size, we will be getting an efficient cooler both in terms of low temperature and low noise. Now looking at the pricing for Amp Extreme here, you guys can pick it up for $499 in the UK, and it's going to be around the same in the US as well, $499. And so certainly in the UK this card here is shaping up to be one of the more expensive 1070 Ti's, although we do get a 5-year warranty. The deciding factor with this card, however, is going to be how effective this cooler is here, and whether ZOTAC can do anything with those clock speeds, and we'll have more on that later in the video, so enjoy. Okay, and here is the mighty GTX 1070 Ti Amp Extreme, and what becomes immediately apparent about this card is the sheer size and the magnitude. What comes into view straight away is the Ice Storm cooler and its triple fan arrangement. This whole design will be very familiar to many of you, as it has appeared under other GTX 10 series graphics cards, and later on we'll be removing that cooler for a more detailed look at what it features. The overall look is definitely very appealing. We have a metal shroud which incorporates some carbon effect styling. We do get some RGB lighting with Amp Extreme. ZOTAC call this Spectra, and it's actually pretty subtle. There are lighting strips along the edges along with some text, which can be modified to a colour of your choice inside the Firestorm software. Now right next to the GTX 1060 here, you can gauge just how substantial this ZOTAC card is. We're dealing with a monster of a card here, and these are the exact dimensions. For the length, Amp Extreme is 310mm, for the width you're looking at just over 120, and then the height is 56mm. And so it goes without saying, you will need to double check the space inside your case if you are considering this card, as it is big and burly. Now just like every single 1070 Ti on the market, ZOTAC has been unable to apply a factory overclock to this Amp Extreme because Nvidia prohibits any modification out of the box. And that will come as a bit of a surprise to some, especially when this card has been given the Amp Extreme treatment, which usually means a large boost in GPU and memory clock speed. And so the base clock is set at 1607, and that boosts to 1683 MHz, and the memory clock is at stock, operating at 8000 MHz. It isn't all bad news though. ZOTAC has created a custom profile which can be loaded in via the Firestorm software, and this profile features adjustments to the GPU and memory clock speeds, both of which have been verified to be stable. This Ti carries across the same memory design as the 1070 with 8GB of GDDR5, however it does have 512 extra shader units compared to the 1070 and a faster core clock. And as you can expect, the Ti is PCI Express 3.0 compliant, it is DirectX 12 ready, and it supports OpenGL 4.5. Amp Extreme will occupy 2 spaces on your case and 2.5 spaces on your board due to those huge dimensions. On this back panel we have a good selection of ports. Available we have one DVI port giving you up to 3K, triple DisplayPort 1.4 as those can give you up to 8K at 60Hz, and we also have one HDMI 2.0 that offers 4K at 60Hz. And so plenty of flexibility for different ports on monitors, and of course the option there to expand beyond a single display. Now for the power requirements we have 500 watt being specified, and you will need twin 8-pin connectors for the power delivery. So that is quite demanding, but we do have a custom PCB, extra lighting, and this card here is capable of big overclocks. Right next to those PCI Express we have an LED which will indicate whether the power is properly connected. The standard SLI ports are on this card as normal to allow you to pair up with multiple cards. And flipping the card over, on the reverse we have a large metal backplate which wraps around the edges. This backplate is vented, and you can see we also have a power boost chip. Now this isn't anything new, ZOTAC has implemented power boost in the past, and what it does is it reduces the ripple noise and the power fluctuation, and so in simple terms it regulates the electrical current. Okay, well that cooler has now been detached from the card, and this is Ice Storm. Essentially what we have here is a triple fan configuration. These fans here are what ZOTAC term eco fans, and they are 90mm in specification. On the inside of the main blades there are little fins which help to generate airflow towards the centre of the fan. Now those fans sit on top of this huge heatsink, which as well as utilising aluminium fins, also has the copper heat pipes and direct copper contact with the GPU. We'll be able to see the effectiveness of this cooler later on, but having already tested this out, I can tell you guys that Ice Storm is able to deliver some extremely low temperatures. So with that cooler off the card, we can also check out the PCB. So this is a custom board which features an 8-phase digital power design. At the heart of our 1070 Ti is the NVIDIA GP104, the same chip there on the 1070 and the 1080, and so since this is Pascal, we are dealing here with a 16nm process. As we mentioned earlier, this Ti has more shader units than the 1070, features the same core clock as the 1080, and is aiming for that sweet spot in between these two cards while crushing the AMD Vega 56. So to test out Amp Extreme, we'll run this card in its out-of-the-box NVIDIA reference settings, and then we'll apply that custom profile from ZOTAC, which has the overclocked settings. And this should highlight any benefits to using those higher clock speeds over stock. And so for the games, we'll be running the following benchmarks: For Honor, Shadow of War, Dawn of War 3, The Witcher 3, and GTA 5. And for each of these games, we're going to be going with 1080p, shifting that detail there right up to Ultra. To capture our footage, we'll be using the Epiphan AVIO 4K, which allows us to independently capture gameplay without the GPU or the system taking a hit. And in the full review over on Vortez.net, we'll be taking a look at other games and comparing this card to others, so be sure to check that out. And while we check out these games, we're also going to have GPU-Z running in the background to pick up on the max GPU temperature. So let's begin. Alright, and if we just jump out of GTA 5, we can see what kind of temperature our Amp Extreme maxed out at during all of that gaming, and this here is with the overclock, by the way. And so there we go, that is the result. Well guys, that concludes our look at the 1070 Ti Amp Extreme. And so taking this card in its out of the box state and jumping into a game will give us the same frame rate performance result as any other 1070 Ti. Where the differences arise with this Amp Extreme is that we obviously get this huge ice storm cooler here, which, might I add, allows us to keep the temperatures around about 50 degrees after half an hour of gameplay, which in itself is very impressive. It also emits very little noise, and you know, to achieve that 50 degrees, you'd have thought that noise would come as a trade-off, but it doesn't. Another bonus compared to some of the other cards on the market is that Amp Extreme allows you to get a total of 5 years of warranty. Now that does require you to register the card, but you know, other brands out there are offering just around 2 years. There are, however, a few things to bear in mind with this Amp Extreme, and this seems to be the case for every other Amp Extreme that you go to, regardless of which of the 10 series you choose. It is the size and the weight. This card is huge and it weighs a ton. So if you are considering it, you will need to kind of make sure that you've got enough space in your case, and you know, using PCI Express, which is strengthened, wouldn't be a bad idea either. Now, ZOTAC supply us with a custom profile which you can load onto this card, and that will allow you to adjust the clock speeds accordingly to verified settings. And that overclock there allows you to bump up in performance, allowing you to gain around the extra 5 frames per second in game. However, we did actually do a manual overclock on this card, and we pushed it further than that custom profile. We managed to squeeze out 13% increase, which basically means the 1070 Ti was just behind the 1080. You guys can check out the details of that overclock and see the full set of benchmarks for this card here on the full review on the screen and in the description. Be sure to leave your opinion on this card in the comments box below. Let me know what you think of it. Take care of yourself, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.